The world of global finance is facing a massive and truly unprecedented structural transformation. You might not feel it yet, but the ground beneath you is already shifting. The national debt of the United States has just reached $38 trillion. This figure is so large that it becomes almost impossible to comprehend realistically. It represents a crushing financial burden placed upon every person living today. But here is the secret the mainstream media is not telling you tonight. They are not planning to repay this debt through traditional fiscal methods. No amount of spending cuts or tax hikes can solve this problem. Instead, they are preparing to use a sophisticated and invisible financial mechanism. This mechanism allows debt erasure while shifting the cost directly onto you. You are witnessing the beginning of the largest wealth transfer in history. Please remember to like the video and subscribe for deeper financial dives. Tell us your city and current time in the comments to connect. Let us begin with a number that will quickly make your head spin. The government is adding debt at roughly $92,000 every second. This massive accumulation occurs continuously every day without pause. While you slept last night, the debt increased by over $8 billion. This is not gradual decline but exponential acceleration toward a mathematical wall. The total debt reached $37 trillion in August 2025. Just 5 months later, it officially surpassed $38 trillion. That means over $1 trillion added every few months. Outside global pandemics, this is the fastest debt growth in history. Here is where the situation becomes insane for the average worker. Budget projections show the debt surpassing $40 trillion very soon. We are adding $10 trillion every 5 years now. This velocity increases even while the economy appears strong and stable. Unemployment remains low and corporate profits still look solid today. If debt grows this fast during good times, imagine a recession. Tax revenues would collapse while social spending would explode upward. At that point, the math does not bend, it completely breaks. Raw debt numbers only reveal part of this terrifying financial story. The real crisis hides quietly inside official federal budget documents. Interest payments are now the fastest growing category of government spending. In fiscal year 2025, interest costs exceeded $1 trillion. Not a single dollar reduced principal balances or created new value. That amount exceeds the entire national defense budget. Nearly 1/5 of every tax dollar buys absolutely nothing productive. No roads, schools, or healthcare are funded by those payments. It resembles making endless minimum payments on a growing credit card. The average interest rate on marketable debt is now over 3%. That rate has doubled from historic lows seen recently. Every rate increase adds hundreds of billions in annual interest costs. The Federal Reserve fights inflation by keeping rates elevated. Those same high rates rapidly worsen the Treasury's debt burden. This trap was built slowly over decades of fiscal mismanagement. The government must borrow simply to service existing interest obligations. More borrowing demands higher rates from investors seeking protection. Higher rates increase costs and force even more borrowing. This self-reinforcing loop is known as a debt spiral. Within 10 years, interest spending will exceed defense spending. Every other budget category will be slowly crowded out. But officials understand something most Americans still do not. They possess a nuclear option to eliminate debt without repayment. That option is called debt monetization. Debt monetization has been used repeatedly throughout history. Its simplicity is elegant, but its consequences are devastating. When private buyers disappear, governments turn to central banks. The central bank creates new money to buy government bonds. The government receives cash without raising taxes. The central bank receives interest-paying assets in return. Politicians view this process as essentially free money. The debt still exists but is now owed internally. Interest payments flow back to the Treasury itself. Money simply moves between pockets without creating value. This approach was tested during the global health crisis. The Federal Reserve purchased trillions in bonds through quantitative easing. Officials claimed these purchases were temporary emergency measures. The economic effect was identical to direct debt monetization. Money was created from nothing to fund government spending. The Federal Reserve balance sheet expanded to nearly $9 trillion. Without those purchases, bond markets would have collapsed, interest rates would have surged and exposed the crisis earlier. Quantitative easing was marketed as temporary stabilization. The distinction between markets and monetization was purely cosmetic. Removing trillions in bonds artificially creates demand. Although the emergency ended, the mechanism remains active. In December 2025, the Fed announced new bond purchases. They plan to buy $40 billion monthly. These are labeled reserve management purchases. The economic impact remains identical to quantitative easing. This sets the stage for the largest debt elimination scheme ever. Purchasing power will be demolished in a controlled fashion. Wealth will shift from savers to debtors globally. Modern monetary theory quietly dominates policy thinking today. This theory claims currency issuing governments cannot go broke. Debt becomes just numbers on a digital spreadsheet. Governments create money to repay bonds as needed. Traditional household debt logic is dismissed as outdated. Pandemic spending is cited as proof of sustainability. Inflation is claimed to be the only real constraint. If inflation rises, taxes are supposed to reduce demand. As long as inflation appears manageable, borrowing continues indefinitely. This theory is no longer academic, it is policy. $6 trillion were spent without repayment plans. The debt was monetized through Federal Reserve purchases. Debt monetization transfers cost to dollar holders. New money reduces the value of existing dollars. Savings lose purchasing power over time. Debt vanishes while personal wealth erodes silently. This mechanism operates legally without public consent. Technical policies hide the effects from most people. Markets are now testing tolerance for this approach. If successful, monthly purchases will expand rapidly. 40 billion will become 80, then 100 billion. Eventually, the central bank becomes the primary bond buyer. Printing money alone cannot erase all debt. Strategic asset revaluation provides additional cover. The government holds over 200,000 seized Bitcoin. At current prices, this equals roughly $20 billion. That amount is insignificant compared to total debt. Officials can revalue assets through reserve accounting. Bitcoin could be declared a strategic reserve asset. Its accounting value could be raised dramatically overnight. Balance sheet strength appears instantly improved. This tactic mirrors gold revaluation in 1934. Gold prices were raised by presidential decree. Reserve values increased without acquiring new assets. The same approach could be applied to gold today. The United States holds over 8,000 tons of gold. That gold is still valued at $42 per ounce. Revaluation offers trillions in paper wealth. Combined assets create the illusion of fiscal health. In reality, inflation erodes real economic value. Foreign governments hold trillions in United States treasuries. Monetization reduces the purchasing power of those holdings. Trust in American debt is steadily eroding. China has reduced treasury holdings significantly. Russia eliminated dollar reserves after 2022. Saudi Arabia now accepts alternative currencies for oil. These shifts reflect economic self-preservation. BRICS nations are building alternative financial systems. Trade increasingly bypasses the dollar. Central banks are buying gold at record levels. These purchases prepare for a post-dollar system. Electric vehicles threaten oil demand growth. Oil trade requires fewer dollars over time. Overseas dollars will eventually return home. This will amplify domestic inflation dramatically. Officials know their timeline is limited. Once reserve status fades, inflation export ends. America will face constraints like any debtor nation. A financial reset is already underway. Bond purchases will likely expand within 18 months. Media will frame this as market stabilization. In reality, savings will be systematically destroyed. By 2027, default or monetization becomes inevitable. The decision has already been made privately. Debt will vanish through wealth transfer. Every dollar holder will pay the cost. The only question is whether you notice in time.